BRI Youth Group is a nonprofit founded in March 2020 under Bridge Road International Foundation. The youth group gives students the chance to utilize their talents, abilities, and leadership to serve the local community. Because of the pandemic, hospitals have been in need of protective equipment such as face masks for the past few months. To help provide support, a group of over 10 student volunteers worked together to hand make 400 face masks and 400 nurse caps out of cloth, as well as thousands of face shields. We sent the equipment to over 20 hospitals, including Washington Hospital and Santa Clara Valley Medical Center.
The BRI Youth Group has been working diligently to help the community by not only making face masks for doctors on the front line, but also by creating programs to help students whose education has been affected by the lack of resources. We offer more than 30 classes for K-8 students in the subjects of English, math, computer science, music, and art by over 50 high school volunteers who are very willing to help the students. We have over 200 students from different states and even outside the US, and we also assist students with special needs to make sure that it does not hinder their learning. If you would like to find out more information regarding the classes or volunteer opportunities, please go to the website briyouth.org.
So we are very happy to have 3 recent college graduates to talk about their college and career experiences. They all graduated from Mission San Jose High School in 2016. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming, in order, Jacinta, T, and Amber.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jacinta, and thank you so much, Sean, for the introduction, as well as the organization for having me. I graduated, like Sean said, in 2016 from Mission San Jose High School, and then went on to attend Cornell University, majoring in hotel administration at their School of Hotel Administration, which is under Cornell's S.C. Johnson College of Business. I also ended up minoring in fashion studies as something that I pursued on the side as a personal interest. In the interest of time, I'll speak briefly about my various experiences, both professionally as an intern during my 3 summers, as well as my involvement on campus, and lastly, some of the competitions that I did that I felt were incredibly beneficial to my personal development, as well as the growth of my experience when pursuing the career that I wanted. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to put them in the Slido. To start off, my freshman year, I started off interning in Dubai, actually doing business excellence and guest services at the Burj Al Arab, which is a luxury hotel in the Middle East. And it was through this experience that I actually realized that in the hotel administration major, I no longer wanted to pursue something that was as hotel operations focused, and instead wanted to do something that encompassed a little bit more of a general business skill set, which I think really impacted my future professional experiences, being that I later on ended up interning at EY, formerly known as Ernst & Young, which is an accounting firm, doing what was called transaction advisory services, which is also known as merger and acquisition consulting, which is in the simplest form when different businesses buy out each other. They need to hire a variety of consultants and organizations to help them with this entire process, whether it's in terms of the finances or the strategy. And then more recently, this past summer, I interned at Delta Airlines doing innovation business strategy, as well as investing on behalf of their venture capital team. Originally, I was going to return to Delta Airlines to this same team full time because I enjoyed it a lot, but recently found out that due to the coronavirus, my future plans have sort of taken a turn. So I'm now re-recruiting for business roles. And if you have any questions about what that's like, feel free to ask that as well. On campus, I was involved in a variety of different organizations, serving in a variety of different officer positions, namely for different organizations that are business oriented. For example, I was a part of an organization called the Cornell Undergraduate Asia Business Society, as well as another organization called Cornell Consulting. And I think both of these organizations were very impactful and helped to shape a lot of how I learned where I wanted to take my future business career. In addition to that, I also did things that were more specific to the hotel school. And during 1 year, actually worked as an undergraduate admissions assistant. So can answer any questions pertaining to that as well. And lastly, in terms of competitions, particularly during my sophomore and junior years, I sort of took it upon myself to try to gain as much experience as possible in a variety of different fields, and ended up competing on both school, national, and international levels in a variety of business-related competitions that helped to further my knowledge of different industry areas, and I think ultimately helped me grow a lot as a person as well. So also happy to speak a little bit more about those later on. If I could have the next slide, please. So what exactly is business and what does business encompass? Unfortunately, there isn't a very straightforward answer to this question, being that the business field is incredibly large and encompasses a variety of different industries. Generally speaking, students which are pursuing any form of business undergraduate degree have to take a variety of classes ranging from finance to accounting to writing to strategy to marketing to human resources to law. I mean, it encompasses truly everything that you can think of that you would need to be successful in running any sort of business. That being said, because all of the different classes that you take during undergrad are very broad and teach you a wide variety of skills, that does translate to having a lot of options post-grad. So generally speaking, business students, after they graduate, choose to enter, generally speaking, choose to take one of two different routes. One way is to go about what is known as the professional services way, which is to do something that, I'm trying to explain it in the simplest forms possible, which is to enter a company that does a variety of business services for other companies. So these can include banks or consulting firms. And then the other path is to enter a specific industry and a specific business role, such as, for example, doing marketing at a tech company. And in terms of why you should consider a career in business, I think that business is an incredibly not only large industry, which provides you with a lot of different options, it also provides you with a skill set that I think is very transferable to other industries as well. And so I think it's bound to be helpful. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. And then lastly, for any advice that I have on the college experience as a business student, I think being a business student at times can be somewhat stressful because there is a lot of peer pressure that comes from being in a highly motivated environment. But what I can say is that there are so many opportunities out there in business just because of the breadth and the scope of the industry itself. And what that means is I highly encourage you to take advantage of any opportunities that come your way, while also being open-minded and allowing yourself to explore if you have any changes and what you believe that you want your career path to be. For me, I went into Cornell thinking that I wanted to be a 100% hotel person, and have come out of it deciding that I want to pursue something in business strategy. So I think you have to be really open to exploring, and also should take into account that there are many different ways to achieve the future goals that you want, not necessarily some of the more typical paths that are generally outlined for you in business careers. And lastly, before I finish off on my segment of the talk, I just wanted to remind everyone that your college years really do fly by very, very quickly. I myself blinked and 4 years have passed. So I highly encourage all of you to create as many memories as you can and have fun while you can as well, while working hard along the way. Thank you so much, and looking forward to answering more of your questions. And now I'd like to hand things over to T, who also pursued business and will speak more specifically on human resources as well.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is T, and I recently received my degree in business administration with a concentration in business analytics from St. Mary's College of California back in December of 2019. So throughout my college experience, I was involved in different on-campus organizations. So for a year of my experience, I was the Asian Pacific American Student Association's Vice President of Cultural Engagement. So I worked with other what they called identity and cultural organizations on campus so that we could collaborate on events with each other, like the International Fair and also the International Night Market. On top of that, I was also in the School of Economics and Business Administration's undergraduate advisory board. So I was, in that role, I was the Student Success Committee leader, where I would give advice to the school's board of advisors on how students were doing in their success with classes and class planning. And on top of that, I was also in the Beta Gamma Sigma Honor Society, which was exclusively for the school's top 5% of business students. While I was in these organizations, I also had different jobs and internships. So ever since senior year of high school, I've been a private swim instructor. So that was always something that I pursued just out of passion because I love swimming. I also was a Tesla customer experience specialist for about a year and 3 months, from December of 2017 to March of 2019. So I actually did sell cars for about a year and 3 months. And the summer after that, I was a Total Rewards HR Information Systems and HR Connections intern for Lumentum LLC here in San Jose, California. I actually work there now as an HR Information Systems analyst. And if we could go to the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about that. So human resources is a big umbrella term for basically the administration and training department of a company. So most people think of employee relations and recruiting when it comes to human resources, but there are lots of different departments. And HR information systems specifically deals with administering and maintaining these systems where HR transactions are carried out. So these are systems such as Workday, Oracle, and Paycom. And within human resources, there is plenty of room for people of different talents and skills to shine. So there is HRIS, there's HR Connections that deals with tickets. It's kind of the IT subdepartment for HR. There's also HR Business Partners that consult with different business units within the company to help them hire people for their teams. Benefits, compensation, equity, recruiting, and talent and development. And like I said, it's a very broad field with a lot of different areas where different personalities and skills can shine. You're bound to find different types of people within each team. And overall, it's a very stable line of work, and it's near recession proof because who else is gonna lay everyone off? But yeah, I'll pass it on to, next slide, please. But my first piece of advice would be don't be afraid to explore different other opportunities. I never would have imagined myself to sell cars at any other point in my life, but I did, and the skills turned out to be really transferable, and other companies and employers found that experience really useful. And make strong connections with your professors. I would have never gotten my opportunity to intern at Lumentum if it wasn't for my strong connections with the School of Business's hiring manager and my other professors who wrote recommendation letters for me. And don't be discouraged if you don't find internships within your first 2 years. Most internships are reserved for upperclassmen, incoming upperclassmen to say the least. And I found it really difficult to find professional internship opportunities within my first 2 years. But just keep trying. There's still a little bit of luck involved, so don't be too discouraged. And of course, do your best to balance good grades with ongoing work experience because at least within my experience, employers still did care about your GPA. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Amber. So I just recently graduated this June from Cal Poly SLO with a BFA in art design, concentration in graphic design, and I also minored in graphic communication as a kind of add-on to bolster what I was learning in my major. So during my time at Cal Poly, I was part of many student organizations. So for 3 years, from my sophomore to senior year, I interned at Cal Poly Athletics, where I created graphics, advertisements, apparel, even helped with photo shoots for the athletic department at school. And then I was also president of AIJ Cal Poly, which is the Professional Design Association and this was our student chapter. And last year, I also helped organize a on-campus hackathon, which was a really cool experience because I had never organized an event that large, and I got a lot of good leadership experience out of it. During my freshman and sophomore years, I joined a mechanical engineering club, which is totally different from what I would normally be doing, but I learned a lot of cool stuff about race cars just by being around these people. And I would definitely recommend joining clubs that you wouldn't normally join because you never know what you'll get out of it. And I was also part of the Cal Poly Wind Ensemble for 3 years because I had always loved being in band. So I decided to continue it in college. So another thing I did a lot of in college was design competitions. So I took these as an opportunity to grow my portfolio because in graphic design, your portfolio is the most important thing. This is what your employers are looking at to see what you can do. It's also a really fun challenge. You get to work with your friends, pull some all-nighters, make some cool projects. So that's something I really recommend doing. It's also good to have projects that aren't just student projects. So currently I am a freelance graphic designer. I'm working for a couple of different design agencies doing web brand design and also mobile app design. I also run an online store on the side just for fun because I like to draw. So I sell stickers and prints. Next slide, please. So to add on what I was saying before about competitions and clubs, one thing I really liked about Cal Poly is that students have the opportunity to work with people that you wouldn't normally work with. So I didn't just work with graphic design students, I worked with a lot of engineers because in your career, it's really important to know how to work with other people who don't think like you, creative people and more technically minded people. It takes some learning to figure out how to work with each other. So that is a very important skill to learn. Definitely build connections, go to office hours and get to know your professors. One of the jobs that I currently have, I got through one of my professors because alumni networks are very important. So alumni will come email your professors, ask if they know anyone who would be good for this position. So that's how I got one of my jobs. And also it was just fun to just pop into office hours and just chat about life. I got to be pretty good friends with one of my professors and we still talk to this day, even though I've graduated. So for creative people, especially, I think it's very important not to compare yourself to your peers because everyone's style is different. Everyone's learning at a different pace. So there's no point in worrying. You will all end up with a good portfolio at the end of your college career. And just be passionate. Don't do something just because other people want you to do it. So funny story, I actually when I was applying to colleges, I actually was deciding between biology and graphic design. And I ended up doing graphic design because I realized that I probably would be happier in the long run doing graphic design instead of going into something like pre-med and like research. Okay, next slide, please. So just like a short overview of graphic design. So graphic design isn't what people think. It's just art and making things look good and making them look pretty. It's not. It's actually problem solving through the use of visual things like typography, photography, iconography, and illustration. So it takes these creative skills and makes it into something tangible. So there are many different kinds of design. There's packaging design, brand design, UX UI design, etc. there are many things you could pursue in design. So I would recommend just exploring as many kinds of design that you can while you're in college, just to figure out what you want to pursue in the future. And of course, there are many types of design employment. So right now I'm freelancing. I don't work for a specific company. I am a contractor, so I work for, sorry. So I'm, so I'm a freelancer. I'm not being paid by a specific company to just work for them. I'm working for many different agencies and I work on their projects. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me and ask about these things. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jacinta, T, and Amber for sharing your guys' experiences. So continuing on with the schedule, we'll now be starting on the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please submit it through Slido using the event code 95838. So the first question is for all of you guys, and it's, how has the pandemic affected you personally and career-wise? Any tips or tricks to maintain networks / build new relationships? So we can start off with Jacinta and then T and then Amber.
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned earlier when I started speaking, originally I was planning on going back to Delta full-time. So a little bit about what I did for Delta this past summer is that I worked in their innovation team, which essentially you can only almost imagine is like the creativity arm of Delta Airlines. Although you wouldn't think that airlines have a department like that. I mean, our department was all about like playing with autonomous vehicles and playing with robots and like taste testing different food for airplanes. So it was a really, really awesome experience, but it required a ton of travel. So in my summer alone, I traveled to over 20 countries. Around 8 of them were for work purposes. And so because of the pandemic, pretty much my entire department has been either forced to go on leave or they've had to transfer departments. And so therefore, full-time, my contract with them, they couldn't uphold just due to how much the coronavirus has impacted the company as a whole. I think personally, it has actually been, I think, a little bit better than I expected because I don't know, I feel like Amber and T might be able to relate, but I was pretty burnt out after college. I think because I worked every single summer between my years as well, I didn't really have a lot of time to spend with family either. And so this is the first time in which I've actually gotten to have a significant chunk of time home. So I've gotten to call friends and connect more with my family, and I think improve my mental health. And so I'm feeling a lot less of the burnout that I felt during my senior year, which I think has been really great. In terms of tips or tricks to maintain networks or build new relationships, I think both are incredibly important, especially if you're looking for a job right now post-grad. I've been reaching out to companies that I'm interested in and setting up calls with alumni from the school just to learn a little bit about what they're doing and what their company is currently doing to cope with the coronavirus. And many of them have been incredibly receptive. I mean, a lot of people are working from home as well, so they're very willing to hop on calls with you just to talk a little bit more about their experience and their recommendations for where to go from here. And so I think it's completely possible as long as you reach out. And I think that, like I think Amber was speaking about earlier, your connections are so important, and a lot of alumni, upperclassmen, and people from school are very, very helpful and very willing to speak to you even during times like this.
So I'm very fortunate enough to have started working before the pandemic really took place here. I started working with Momentum in February. Despite graduating in December, I spent a month away in South Korea for a short-term study abroad before starting to work full-time. And because of that, I was able to keep my job. And on top of that, my team was already understaffed to begin with, even with me joining on the team. On top of that, I'm very lucky to work for a company like Momentum because our CEO, Alan Lowe, promised to not do any layoffs during the pandemic, no matter how far it stretched. and he has upheld that promise so far. Working from home has been interesting. At first it was like, oh cool, I get to sleep in another 2 hours and I get to work in my pajamas, which is still great, but it's also, like Jacinta was saying, it's easy to burn out. I find myself having difficulties kind of separating myself from my work because your computer's just always there and you always feel inclined to, oh, I'll just answer one more email or I'll do a couple more transactions. And by the weekends, even though I've been home this entire time, I'm completely, so that's the only issue I've found so far. And of course, I'm very lucky to, of course, have a place to stay during this time and not have to worry about finding a place to find shelter. But yeah, in terms of maintaining networks and building new relationships, if I'm being perfectly honest, I haven't been super on top of that just because my work itself keeps me busy. And after that, I'm totally pooped. But I'm not gonna beat myself up for that too hard. But I think for now, it's just me taking it one day at a time. Yeah.
I think in my case, I think I didn't honestly didn't have too much of a post grad plan, so I don't think the pandemic really has affected me career wise since I'm freelancing. But the nice thing about being home all the time is that I have been able to connect with my high school friends, so it's been really nice to talk to them again. Let's see. In my case, I joined this Facebook group called Asian Creative Network, and that's how I've been networking with other creatives, artists, graphic designers, and I've made a lot of friends through that. So I'd say just find a group of people of similar interests, and then that's how you can build new relationships.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. It is, again, for all of you guys, so we'll go in the same order, but it states, how strong are the alumni networks at your school? Can you explain how they work?
So the alumni network at Cornell is incredibly strong, and actually the alumni network is segmented depending on what program you're in as well. So for example, there's an alumni network for alumni of the School of Hotel Administration, and then there's an alumni network for all of the different business alumni, and then there's like an alumni network for all of Cornell as well. So I think I have had the opportunity to connect with alumni from all over, from a variety of different levels. Personally, I'm very grateful because the hotel school's alumni database actually is like a whole, it's like a huge database where you can actually go in and search for whether it's like different locations or different companies, and it'll pull up all of the alumni that are recorded at that company, their phone numbers, their email addresses, past work experience. So it makes it really, really helpful when trying to get connected in the industry. In addition, Cornell also hosts alumni events and webinars as well. So once you graduate, you're invited into the alumni network, and your own graduation year has a variety of programs. But I've also noticed beyond just networks of your year and networks of your major or school, there's also networks regionally. So originally, when I first relocated back to the Bay Area, since I'm home right now in Fremont, all of the Bay Area alumni also are added into a Bay Area network. And in that network, they'll post about different events or job openings as well. So I think that it's quite detailed, and I think I'm very grateful for that as well.
Similar to the alumni network at Cornell, St. Mary's also has different levels of alumni networks. So, and like a overarching school alumni network, but business school's alumni network is really strong at St. Mary's, probably just because 25% of the school is a business major of some sort. And our career manager, she works her butt off every single day to connect with these alumni and ask if there are any opportunities for current St. Mary's students And many students have found work experience and internships through that. So I'd say it's something that a lot of St. Mary's students like rely on, whether it's during their time at St. Mary's or after. And St. Mary's students are often ones to give back and kind of think of St. Mary's when they do see positions that are open within their companies. So yeah, very strong.
I would say the Cal Poly alumni network is also very strong. It's something that you hear when you visit the school, when you're looking at it. It's something they drill into your brain a lot. It's definitely one of the benefits of going to Cal Poly. For the art department in general, the art department specifically, I would say the alumni network is also very strong. So every year, at the end of the year for seniors and sophomores, the department holds a portfolio review. For seniors, they have alumni come back to review your portfolio, so you get people in the industry who are taking a look at your work and who can give you advice. So this year, because of the pandemic, we couldn't have in-person interviews, portfolio reviews, so we actually had a mentorship program instead, where I was able to talk to an alumni, and then he gave me advice on my portfolio. But I would, like I said before, I would definitely get to know your professors, because alumni will come back and ask them if there are any students who they think are qualified for a position that they're looking for. And also, just in general, it's good to get to know your upperclassmen, because they could be the one who hires you in the future. Yeah.
All right, before we move on to the next question, can all the BRI people put BRI in front of their names so when we mark attendance, we know you're here? All right, so the next question is for all of you guys again. So we can change up the order. We'll go in reverse. Let's go Amber, T, and then Jacinta. So the question is, why did you decide to pick the schools you went to?
Well, I picked Cal Poly because it was the best school I got into for graphic design. That was pretty much it. The other schools I got into for biology, and I was not going to pursue that major.
I chose to go to St. Mary's for a multitude of reasons. I took a tour during spring break of my senior year, and I really fell in love with one, the campus, because it's gorgeous, but two, I like the idea of going to a school where class sizes were a lot smaller. I was pretty average as a student at Mission, if I'm being honest. I wasn't the most exceptional, but I felt like at St. Mary's, with the attention that they give each of their students and the number of resources, I thought I could really shine. And I think that my experience there really speaks to that truth. And I felt where I was far enough away from my parents where they couldn't visit me conveniently, but close enough to where I could drive home and it wouldn't be the worst drive ever. It's about 45 minutes from Fremont. And it's a nice location because you can kind of go to else in the Bay Area, like San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, and it's about a 20-minute drive or a BART ride away. So for those reasons, I picked St. Mary's.
So Cornell was actually my dream school from when I was in, I think, 7th grade, but initially for all the wrong reasons. I actually first learned about Cornell as a school because my dad's best friend went to law school at Cornell, and I think 12-year-old me was like, oh wow, New York sounds really cool. And at first I said that I would be interested in maybe like also doing law at Cornell. And my dad's best friend said, no, you should go to the hotel school. It's like the easiest school there. And so 12-year-old me was like, okay, sounds good. But then when I actually got to high school, I started to actually look into different colleges seriously. And at the time, like Cornell being my dream school for hotel administration was sort of an ongoing joke amongst my family. But when I actually started looking up different credentials of the school as well as the program, I actually realized that it's something that I was really interested in because it's a business administration major that almost is put through the lens of hospitality. So we have to take all the typical business classes while getting to take an additional number of classes that personally I find very interesting, like culinary, hotel operations, and more specific classes like that. And for me, when it really sealed the deal was when my senior year, I actually back then, Cornell's hotel school had a mandatory interview. So you had to interview. And so I flew to Cornell and interviewed on campus. And it was then that I completely fell in love with the school, fell in love with all the upperclassmen, the students that I met. And when what's really funny is that all of my tour guides actually ended up recruiting me into the same clubs as them later on. So I think for me, visiting the school is what really sort of made me actually want to go there.
All right, so moving on to the next question. What is something you wish you had done differently in college? And then this time we'll go T, Amber, and then Jacinta.
So I think the one thing I wish I did differently while in school was I wish I worked less. While I worked at Tesla basically in between my sophomore and junior year, and even if I wasn't working at Tesla, I was teaching swimming privately on the weekends. So I'd actually go back home to Fremont and teach swimming. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was so focused on getting work experience and also getting enough money to pay my bills and pay off my student loans. But I came to realize that I missed out on a lot of things that you typically look forward to in college because of that. I missed a lot of fun events that my club would host, a lot of gatherings. My friends I would see like, I would get FOMO because I'd look on my phone and they were all doing something and they'd be like, oh, we wanted to invite you, but we know you work. And I was like, oh, yeah. So, of course, work hard in college, but remember, like Jacinta said, those 4 years go by in a blink. And those friends you make often are lifelong friends. And I wish I took more time out of work to spend more time with them while I still could.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with T on this. I would also say I wish I had worked less, because I was taking a lot of classes. I took summer classes. I was working part-time. I was in so many organizations. Because Cal Poly is located in San Luis Obispo. It's a totally beautiful area. It's really close to the beach. I wish I had gone out just to enjoy the scenery a little bit more instead of cramming for classes and pulling a lot of all-nighters, unfortunately. Yeah, I just wish I had experienced the college life a little bit more instead of just working the whole time.
This is going to sound horribly unoriginal, but I have to echo the same thing. Especially my sophomore year, I suffered from major burnout because I remember the second semester of my sophomore year is when, for some strange reason, I thought it'd be a great idea to sign myself up for like all these different case competitions. And what ended up happening was they all ended up I remember they all ended up being like in February. And I remember that month I just barely got any sleep and I destroyed my health for like the last of the semester. And I have to agree with what Amber said as well. Cornell is located in between several national parks. So I really wish that I had the opportunity to explore that while I could. I also think it's really important to balance yourself. I think I did that very poorly. I think I went into my freshman and sophomore year like really wanting to grind as hard as I could and get as much out of those 2 years as I could. And I think I don't regret that, but I do regret not taking care of myself more and pushing myself to explore different things and actually have fun, because my mentality was if I work hard now, I can relax more senior year. And then due to COVID-19, didn't actually get to do any of the things on my bucket list senior year. So I think while you can, definitely try to enjoy it.
All right, moving on to the next question, which is just for Amber. So how does it feel to be your own boss? And is it stressful to find any customers?
So luckily, it was only stressful in the beginning when I thought I wasn't working enough. Seems like that's a problem. But because I'm working for agencies, I'm actually relying on them to just send me projects. I don't actually look for individual clients for like logo designs and all that. But like I mentioned before, I'm in that Facebook group. So if I see a post, a listing for something that seems like an interesting project, I will comment my portfolio. I would also recommend just cold emailing people. It might be scary, but the worst thing that can happen is they'll say no. So yeah, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like be confident in your work. And it hasn't been that bad.
So this next question is just for Jacinta. So is hotel admin a popular major in Cornell, and why not consider the traditional majors like finance or accounting? I think you're muted.
My bad. Thank you so much. So I think I can actually answer the first two questions together, just in the interest of time, and also because they're rather similar. So the first question is what Sean just mentioned, and the second one is why I decided not to switch majors. Since I realized I wanted to change from hotel administration to another path, and is it difficult? So I think about the hotel administration major at Cornell. I'm not exactly sure how to answer if it's popular or not, because it is one of the smallest programs at Cornell, which is personally what actually attracted me to the school. The hotel administration major is under what we call the hotel school, and it's just the only major that makes up the school. And every year there's around 500 people, which for Cornell is considerably small. It's rather popular in terms of the fact that the classes are quite popular. A lot of people from other majors like to try to get themselves on the wait list to take classes that we have. And I think this ties into why I wanted to pursue hotel administration rather than a more traditional major. Like I mentioned earlier, the hotel administration program is a certified accredited business program. So we have to take finance, accounting, marketing, you name it. But in addition to that, not only have business core, we also have a separate number of classes, which we call hotel administration core, which are a group of classes which we need to take to graduate, but in my opinion are the best part of the experience. Classes include culinary, restaurant management. I also got to take a class called Introduction to Wine Tasting my junior year. There's classes like wine and food pairing, classes on airplanes, cruises. And so for me, I just felt that getting to sort of hit two birds with one stone, getting to get that foundational business experience and business acumen while also getting to take all of these amazing classes that I probably will never get to take ever again was really great for me. And also, interestingly enough, within hotel administration, less than 15% of the school actually ends up doing actual hotel work post-graduation. So within the actual major, there are barely any people who actually transfer out. There's quite a few people who transfer in, but I've never heard of anyone transferring out of the hotel school. It's not difficult. I just don't think anyone really wants to. And I think because of the variety of those different reasons, I decided to stay, and I've never once considered transferring out, even though I didn't want to do hotel specific work anymore.
All right, so now on to the next one, which is for T. So what made you interested in pursuing HR, and what are some good ways to prepare for a career in that field?
So funny enough, I think when I was about 10 or 11, I think I was having lunch with my family, and my dad like just kind of randomly said, T, I think you work well in HR. I was like, what's that? And my dad did a horrible job of explaining what it was because he thought it was really just recruiting. And he assumed that because I like talking and I like connecting with people, even people who I'm not necessarily familiar with. But as I got to experience different things up throughout high school as well, my biggest passion I've ever had besides swimming was my Vietnamese youth group. And I thought to myself during high school, wow, if running a youth group like this was a job, that'd be the dream. Like anything that requires these kind of skills. And then I did a lot of research, and lo and behold, a lot of those skills and those kinds of projects and experiences are often present in HR. I did kind of switch gears a bit by going into the information system side, but I do think information and business analytics help with that. For the technical side of the job, like data analysis, building dashboards, and reports. But my experience working in Tesla in sales, my God, I spent 8 hours a day just talking to people, replaying very similar conversations to sell people these very expensive cars, but it really did help build my people skills. So for that aspect of the job, I have my experience at Tesla to thank, and also my experience at my youth group.
Okay, so the next question is for all. So we're good. Oh, okay. So the next question is, who's the fastest swimmer of you three? We can go Jacinta, T, and then Amber.
This is so funny to me because in order to graduate from Cornell, you actually have to pass the swim test, and I don't know how to swim at all. And so for 4 years, I came up with all these excuses to delay it, and in the end, coronavirus allowed me to get exempt. So I'm definitely the slowest.
It's not me. T is faster than me. She did year-round swimming. I only did summer swimming, so that's her. T is the fastest.
If you swam for MSJA, give a thumbs up in the chat. But yeah, Amber's a very fast swimmer too. She swims backstroke very fast.
Okay, so now the next question is for all. Did you guys do anything in high school to prepare for your chosen career specifically? And do you guys have any recommendations for things to do? And this time we can go Amber, Jacinta, and then T.
So like I said before, I was deciding between biology and graphic design. So I did take AP Bio to prepare for that possible career path. I didn't take any art classes actually until senior year. I only took digital imaging and art 3. I didn't even take AP art. But on the side, I was really into photography, and I also did some graphic design for art class activities. That's pretty much all I did. I didn't really prepare specifically for graphic design.
For me, I was a part of an organization called DECA in high school, and I was almost way too involved in it for my own good sometimes, I think. But I think it really helped to prepare me for college and for my career, actually, because the case competitions that DECA held at the high school level are actually remarkably similar to the ones held in the college level, and are actually very applicable to the case interviews that you have to have if you decide to pursue certain business careers. So I actually highly recommend joining if you are interested in business and still in high school. But personally, that organization really helped me to sort of get my foot in the door in these types of activities.
I didn't necessarily take any coursework specifically to prepare for my career in HR, but I do remember contemplating between either majoring in business or industrial organizational psychology, which is a field of psychology that specifically studies the behavior of people within organizations. And a lot of people in HR actually get their master's in that. And the only reason I didn't decide to pursue industrial organizational psychology was because, like Jacinta said, if business majors have a lot of different opportunities that they can delve into after graduation. Even if you were to study one thing, it's not terribly difficult to pivot your career in another direction. But I will say that taking AP psychology did confirm that, yes, I do enjoy working and studying people. So, yeah.
Okay, so the next question is just for Jacinta. So could you please explain a bit about how you got to participate in the international activities you mentioned?
Sure. So I think I guess in terms of the international activities that I've been a part of, I think the very first one was getting in Dubai my freshman summer. And that was truly, I think, a stroke of luck because at the time I was looking to intern in a hotel and I actually attended a panel with a guest speaker who happened to be the CEO of that luxury hotel group from the Middle East. And I signed up to speak with him at a panel. And afterwards, there was sort of a question and answer session. And I stayed a little bit more longer after to ask him some personal questions about his experience being in Dubai. And he also is not from there originally. And afterwards, I sent him a thank you email the next day. And although he himself never responded, I had mentioned that, that's like my dream hotel ever. And so one day, hopefully 10 years down the line, if I ever get to work there, I'd be honored to. And although he never responded, the very next day, I got an email from someone in their HR center in Abu Dhabi. Somebody internally had referred me to the company and if I wanted to create a role there. And so that was 100 stroke of luck and something that I'm very grateful for. In terms of case competitions, there are actually quite a few competitions where depending on if you win the school level and then later the national level, there are ones which have an even higher one, the international level. The EY one I did, the finals were actually in London, and I also attribute some of that to luck, I believe. But my biggest advice for people who are looking to go international is that there are so many different ways of doing it. Like T mentioned, she decided to study abroad in Korea, and I think that's a great way to build sort of your international experience as well. And so I think that if you decide that your goal is to experience more of the world, there's definitely a way to do it. You just have to look for the opportunities and the path that.
Oh, okay. So this next question is just for T. What is your favorite boba order?
I'm really extra, and if I do get boba nowadays, I drive my butt over to Seven Leaves in San Jose, and I usually get the Assam milk tea if I don't get the coffee, but the matcha there is pretty good too. Is that just because my name's T, by the way?
So now on to the next question. This is for everyone. So do you guys have tips for staying social even though you guys are busy? So we'll go back to the original order, Jacinta, T, and then Amber.
I think it really helps if, for me personally, I think it was really helpful that all of the activities that I was very busy with, generally speaking, involved some form of social activity. So whether it was through my organizations in which we have like very tight-knit friendships within, or case competitions, if I'm ever doing a competition that is a team event, or if I'm ever doing work for a club that involves multiple different people, we'll generally try to weave some fun into it. Like we'll still all try to get dinner sometimes. We'll take the time to take a step away from work to still reconnect. And I think that it's incredibly important to still have that face-to-face interaction because sometimes in college when you're hard at work, it's really easy to pigeonhole yourself into your work and not feel the need to really socialize. And so I highly recommend trying to surround yourself with a group of people who really care about you and keep an eye out for you during times like that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Jacinta. I personally set schedules from when I would socialize with people, just like how you set schedules for yourself to study and to take care of yourself. I included socializing in that. I told myself that I would finish all my studying by the time the sun went down, like which made it really tough when daylight savings ended. But that way, I had enough time for my brain to rest and to give me the opportunity to see if my friends were free to do anything. Or we would set up routines. There was this taqueria near my school that was like open till 2 a.m. and they had Taco Tuesdays where all the tacos were $1. So we made it a thing. So every Tuesday we'd go get tacos and things like that. Like even periods in between your classes, because you're bound to have gaps between your classes. Make it a point to reach out to your friends and have it be a regular thing to see each other. Because otherwise I would have been totally preoccupied with my work and my studies.
So the nice thing about the art department at Cal Poly is that we actually have a little studio for the graphic design students. But the whole art department kind of just took over it. So the nice thing is that everyone just hangs out there to work, to study, to work on projects, like in between classes. So actually it's kind of funny. So even if you're pulling an all-nighter in the studio, there's a very high chance that someone else is also pulling an all-nighter in the studio with you. So even though you're all procrastinating and not managing your time well, you're doing it together. But now after I've graduated and I'm working, I've set a schedule for myself. I'm going to work 9 to 5 and I will stop working at 5. So I have time for friends and other personal things after.
Right, since we're approaching 8, we're just gonna finish off these last 3 questions. So please don't submit any more. So this one's for all of you guys again. So how accessible are your professors? And if you're struggling, is it hard to find help with classes? And then this time we can go T, Jacinta, and then Amber.
With my professors, they were always very accessible. They always made it very clear that they were available for office hours. And even before COVID was a thing, they would be really flexible and actually take time out of their personal lives and set up like Zoom office hours. And they would be like really accommodating because I also worked in the evenings. So they were always very accessible and I really appreciated that with my experience at St. Mary's.
Echoing what T mentioned, I think that my professors were also very accessible at Cornell. I think a lot of my class sizes were very small as well, so that was incredibly helpful. And the other thing about the hotel school is that there are many professors which teach one class when you're a freshman and sophomore, and then one of the higher level classes. So there are many times where you actually end up having the same professor again, and so you're able to continue that relationship, which is something that I've really appreciated.
Yeah, so the art department at Cal Poly is also extremely small. The graphic design concentration, we actually only had one professor at a certain point in time. It was a little rough, but our professors are extremely accessible. You can pop into office hours, you can email them anytime, they will get back to you.
Okay, so this question is again for all of you guys. So are there any specific programs for finding internships at your school? And then this time we can go Amber, Jacinta, and then T.
Okay, so Cal Poly does have career counseling. We have career fairs. You can find internships there. I didn't find any of the career fairs particularly helpful for me personally because Cal Poly is mainly an engineering and agriculture school. So not many companies would come to look for creative positions. So mainly took advantage of Handshake. So it's a website where companies post job listings. So that's how I found my internship at Cal Poly Athletics there.
I definitely agree with Amber that sometimes career fairs are not necessarily the most helpful. Granted, Cornell's Career Services Department is really, really great. It's also highly specified depending on what program and what major you're in as well. But at Cornell, particularly in the business field, what's actually the main source of internship news is actually students. So at Cornell, there's like a very strong business club and business organization culture. And so the business student community is really, really good at spreading information about internships, information sessions, and more. And personally, I think pretty much everyone is pushed to start looking for internships through the different organizations that they become a part of. So it's just actual programs set up by the school. The students also have an info as well.
So contrary to Amber and Jacinta's experience, the career fair at St. Mary's was a large part, was actually how I found my experience at Tesla. So they have a showroom down in Walnut Creek, which is about 15 minutes away from the school. And they were looking for students to potentially work there as customer experience specialists. And I did not intend to like seek out a sales position. I came there to look for summer internships where they explained, oh, we're actually the showroom from Walnut Creek, but we will pass your resume down to corporate. And a week later, I got an email for the sales position anyway, because they liked my resume. Because St. Mary's is primarily known for its business program and 25% of the students are business majors, a lot of resources are poured into the School of Business and Economics. So I definitely took advantage of that. And I found my internship for Lumentum through my career manager. The School of Business has its own specific career manager. It's not shared with the other majors. And she has plenty of connections and she manages the school's handshake site very well. And through her, I was able to get my internship, even though I was applying and interviewing for about 2 months and didn't get very much luck. So definitely take advantage of those resources, especially when you go to a school that emphasizes like its business program.
Now on to the last question, just for Amber. So what programs and softwares do you use / recommend for graphic design?
So unfortunately, Adobe is the industry standard. Currently paying $60 a month for the Creative Cloud subscription, but they do have a student discount, so definitely take advantage of that. Hopefully your school will have, maybe they will pay for it and you can use it for free. But there are several programs that are one-time purchase, so for Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector program, there's Affinity Designer, which is a $20 app, I think. Plus they have an iPad app, so you can work mobile. So you don't have to use Adobe, but if you do work in the industry, you probably will have to. There are a lot of different apps. Like for UX UI design, there's also like Sketch, Figma, Adobe XD. There are a lot of programs to learn, but it's just all up to personal preference, but industry standard is Adobe.
Okay, so before we go, we would like to let you know that we will have another session next Sunday at the same time with another group of recent college graduates to share their experiences with you about CS and English and linguistics. So please watch out for the announcement. So thank you again, Jacinta, T, and Amber for sharing your valuable experiences with us. And thank you everyone for attending.